The desperate call, the morning sun cast golden light across the crystal spires of New Harmony, the capital city of Serenity 3. Dr. Liana Voss stood on the observation deck of the Central Research Institute, watching children play in the floating gardens below, their laughter mixed with the gentle music that always filled the air on her world. The Zalani people had built their civilization around peace, art, and the pursuit of knowledge. War was something they read about in ancient texts, not something they ever expected to face. That peaceful morning ended when the sky caught fire. Dark ships descended through the atmosphere like metallic locusts, their hulls scarred and weapons already charging. The first explosions shattered the harmony that had defined Zalani culture for over 3,000 years. Buildings that had stood as monuments to beauty and learning crumbled under energy blasts designed for maximum destruction. Liana ran through corridors filled with panicking civilians. Her long silver hair, a mark of her advanced age and wisdom among her people, streamed behind her as she made her way to the emergency communication center. The Zalani had never needed military protocols, but they had prepared for natural disasters and cosmic events. She hoped those preparations would be enough. The attackers were Kreks, a species known throughout the galaxy for their brutality and endless hunger for conquest. They were massive creatures, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick grey skin that could deflect most energy weapons. Their faces were dominated by 4 red eyes and mouths filled with razor-sharp teeth. But it wasn't their physical appearance that made them truly terrifying. It was their complete lack of mercy. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching the destruction below with satisfaction. The Kreks Dominion had conquered 47 worlds in the past century, and Serenity 3 would be an easy addition to that list. The Zalani were known for their artistic achievements and scientific discoveries, but they had no military force to speak of. Their planet would provide excellent slave labor for the Dominion's mining operations. Status report, Vextar commanded, his voice a deep growl that made his subordinates flinch. Primary cities are under bombardment, Commander, replied his second in command, a scarred veteran named Grixter. No organized resistance detected. The locals are fleeing to underground shelters. Good. Begin the harvesting operation. I want 10,000 slaves ready for transport within 6 hours. Back on the planet's surface, Liana finally reached the communication center. The building shook constantly from nearby explosions, and she could hear the terrifying roar of Kreks transport ships landing throughout the city. Her hands trembled as she activated the emergency broadcast system. The Zalani had maintained contact with several peaceful species throughout their sector of the galaxy. Trade partners, research collaborators, and cultural exchange programs had created a network of friendly relationships. But as Liana scrolled through her contact list, her heart sank. The Altarians were too far away to help in time. The Centauri Collective had their own problems with Kreks raids. The Vegan Republic had already fallen to the Dominion 3 months ago. Please, she whispered to herself, there has to be someone. She composed a message in Standard Galactic, the common language used for interspecies communication. Her voice shook as she spoke into the transmitter. This is Dr. Liana Voss of Serenity 3, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Our world is under attack by the Kreks Dominion. We are a peaceful civilization with no military defenses. They are killing our people and taking prisoners for slave labor. We have children hiding in shelters while their parents are being dragged away. If there is anyone out there who can help us, please respond. Our coordinates are attached to this transmission. We don't know how much longer we can hold out. She broadcast the message on every frequency the communication array could reach, sending it racing across space at faster than light speeds. Then she repeated it again and again, her voice growing more desperate with each repetition. An explosion much closer than the others shook the building, and Liana could hear Krek's soldiers breaking through the outer doors. She had maybe 5 minutes before they reached her position. She changed her message to include more technical data about the Krek's forces and their known weaknesses, hoping that information might help someone, somewhere, mount a rescue mission. The door to the communication center burst open just as she finished transmitting. 3 Krek soldiers entered, their weapons trained on her. The leader, a massive creature with battle scars covering his arms, spoke in broken standard galactic. Stop transmission. Come with us now. Liana raised her hands. Slowly, her heart breaking as she saw the destruction visible through the shattered windows. Her beautiful city was burning, and she had no idea if her desperate message had reached anyone who could help. 12 light-years away, Captain Sarah Chen sat in the command chair of the UES Pioneer, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel. The ship was 3 years into a 5-year mission to map unexplored regions of the galaxy and establish contact with new species. So far, they had discovered 6 new star systems and made first contact with 2 peaceful civilizations. Sarah was reviewing survey reports when her communications officer, Lieutenant James Rodriguez, looked up from his station with a puzzled expression. Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal on multiple emergency frequencies. It's coming from outside our assigned patrol area. Let's hear it. The bridge fell silent as Dr. Liana Voss's desperate plea filled the air. Sarah listened to the entire message twice, her jaw tightening with each word. The crew exchanged glances, all thinking the same thing. The Krek's dominion was infamous throughout this region of space. They were slavers, murderers, and conquerors, who showed no mercy to anyone who stood in their way. Distance to the source? Sarah asked. Approximately 14 hours at maximum warp, Captain, replied her navigator. Ensign Maria Santos. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the ship's xenobiologist and cultural specialist, stepped forward. Captain, I've studied the Kreks extensively. They typically deploy 15 to 20 ships for a planetary conquest operation. We're just one exploration vessel with minimal weapons. Sarah nodded grimly. The Pioneer carried defensive systems and a small complement of fighters, but it wasn't designed for military operations. Going up against a Krek's fleet would be suicide. Under normal circumstances, what do we know about the target world? She asked. Serenity 3 is home to the Zelani people. Dr. Harper continued. They're one of the most peaceful species in known space. Their entire civilization is built around art, music, and scientific research. They have absolutely no military capability. Commander Alex Morrison, Sarah's first officer, leaned forward. Captain, I understand the moral imperative here, but we have to be realistic. Even if we could somehow defeat the Krek's fleet, we'd be starting an interstellar war. The Dominion would retaliate against every human colony in this sector. Sarah stood up and walked to the main view screen, which showed the stars streaming past as they traveled through space. She thought about the desperation in Dr. Voss's voice, about children hiding in shelters while their parents were dragged away to slavery. She thought about humanity's own history, about all the times when evil had triumphed because good people chose not to act. Mr. Rodriguez, send a priority message to Starfleet Command. Inform them of the situation and request immediate reinforcements. Aye, Captain. Commander Morrison, I want you to review everything we know about Krek's tactics and ship designs. Look for weaknesses we can exploit. Already on it, Captain. Sarah turned to address her entire bridge crew. I know this isn't what we signed up for when we accepted this exploration mission. We're scientists and diplomats, not soldiers. But sometimes the universe asks more of us than we expected. That message we just heard, it's not just a call for help. It's a test of who we are as a species. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his station. Captain, I've sent the message to command, but it will take at least 3 days to reach them. Even if they dispatch a fleet immediately, it won't arrive for a week. Then we're on our own. Sarah returned to her command chair. Set course for Serenity 3, maximum warp. All department heads, I want options for taking on a superior force. We may not be able to win a straight fight, but humans have never been known for fighting fair. As the Pioneer adjusted course and accelerated toward the crisis, Sarah reflected on humanity's place in the galaxy. They were relative newcomers to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Most alien species saw them as primitive upstarts from a dangerous world where everything tried to kill everything else. What those aliens didn't understand was that growing up on a Deathworld had taught humanity some very useful lessons about survival, adaptation, and creative problem-solving. When faced with impossible odds, humans didn't give up. They got angry, they got creative, and they found a way to win. The ship's engineer, Chief Petty Officer David Kim, appeared on the bridge carrying a tablet full of technical specifications. Captain, I've been thinking about our power distribution systems. If we reroute energy from non-essential systems, we might be able to boost our weapons output by 30%. Do it, Sarah ordered. Asterisk. Over the next several hours, the crew of the Pioneer transformed their peaceful exploration vessel into something resembling a warship. They stripped unnecessary equipment to make room for additional ammunition. They reprogrammed their scientific sensors to function as targeting systems. They even converted their shuttle bay into a makeshift missile production facility. Dr. Harper worked tirelessly to compile intelligence on Krek's psychology and tactics. They're overconfident, she reported during a strategy meeting. The Dominion has conquered so many worlds without serious resistance that they don't expect effective opposition. They rely on intimidation and overwhelming force rather than tactical sophistication that gives us an advantage, Commander Morrison added. If we can surprise them, hit them hard and fast, we might be able to level the playing field. As they approached the Serenity system, Sarah gathered her crew for a final briefing. The ship's complement of 87 people filled the main conference room, representing every department from navigation to hydroponics. In 12 hours, we're going to drop out of warp in a system controlled by hostile forces, Sarah began. Our mission is simple. Rescue as many Zilani civilians as possible and drive off the Krek's fleet. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and operating far from any support. She paused, looking at the faces around her. These were explorers, scientists, and technicians who had signed up to study distant stars and make contact with new civilizations. Now she was asking them to risk their lives in combat against one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. I won't lie to you, some of us might not make it home. But if we don't act, an entire civilization will be enslaved or destroyed. The Zilani called out to the stars for help, and we're the only ones who answered. That makes us responsible. The crew sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the weight of what lay ahead. Then Lieutenant Rodriguez stood up. speaking for the communications department. "Captain, we're with you 100%. One by one, the other department heads stood and voiced their support. Within minutes, the entire crew was on their feet, united in their determination to answer the desperate call for help. Sarah felt a surge of pride in her people. This was what made humanity special, not their technology or their weapons, but their willingness to stand up for those who couldn't defend themselves. Asterisk. The Deathworlders, answer the US Pioneer, dropped out of warp at the edge of the Serenity system, like a lone wolf entering a den of predators. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display update with grim information. Serenity III hung in space like a wounded bird, its surface marked by the ugly scars of orbital bombardment. Smoke plumes rose from burning cities, and the planet's beautiful blue-green surface was marred by expanding gray zones where the crew had begun strip mining operations. Sensor report, Sarah commanded. Ensign Santos worked frantically at her station. 18 Crex vessels in system, Captain 12. Our heavy cruisers positioned in orbital defense patterns. 4 are troop transports, currently loading cargo from the surface, to appear to be command ships maintaining position near the outer planets. Commander Morrison whistled softly. 18 ships. That's even more than intelligence estimated. Dr. Harper studied the alien vessel configurations on her screen. The good news is they're spread out. The bad news is any one of those cruisers could probably destroy us in a straight fight. Sarah nodded grimly. The Pioneer was heavily modified for this mission, but it was still fundamentally an exploration vessel facing a battle fleet designed for conquest. However, she had spent the journey from Earth studying human military history, looking for examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior tactics and determination. Mr. Rodriguez, scan for Zalani life signs, detecting approximately 2 million survivors in underground shelters across the planet's surface, Captain. But I'm also reading massive energy signatures from Crex harvesting operations. They're systematically destroying the planet's ecosystem. The communication system crackled to life with an incoming transmission. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a Crex warship. Commander Vextar's massive form dominated the display, his 4 red eyes gleaming with predatory amusement. Unknown vessel, you have entered territory claimed by the Crex Dominion. Identify yourself and state your business, or be destroyed. Sarah stepped forward, her posture straight and confident despite the impossible odds they faced. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Pioneer. You are attacking a peaceful world and enslaving innocent civilians. Withdraw your forces immediately. Vexter's laughter was a sound like grinding metal. Earth. I have never heard of this insignificant species. You pilot one small ship against my entire fleet. Surrender now, and I will grant you the honor of serving the Dominion. As slaves. I'm going to give you one chance to do this the easy way, Sarah replied, her voice deadly calm. Release your prisoners. Stop your attack on this world, and leave this system. This is your only warning. The Crex commander's amusement turned to rage. You dare threaten the Dominion. I will enjoy watching your pathetic vessel burn. Perhaps I will keep your crew alive long enough to witness the final harvesting of this world. I tried to be reasonable, Sarah said quietly. Remember that. She gestured to Rodriguez, who cut the transmission. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of electronics and the distant vibration of the ship's engines. Sarah turned to address her crew, knowing that the next few hours would determine not just their fate, but the survival of an entire civilization. All stations, battle alert. This is what we came here to do. Commander Vextar returned to his command chair, already dismissing the lone human vessel from his thoughts. In his experience, species that had achieved space travel fell into two categories: those smart enough to fear the Krek's dominion, and those too stupid to live. These humans clearly belonged in the second group. "Deploy attack formation Beta," he ordered. "I want that ship disabled and boarded. The crew might provide useful intelligence about their home world." 8 Krek's cruisers moved into attack positions, their weapons charging with the distinctive whine of antimatter cannons. They approached in a standard pincer formation, designed to overwhelm a single target with concentrated firepower from multiple angles. What they didn't expect was for their target to charge straight at them. The Pioneer accelerated directly toward the center of the Krek's formation, its engines glowing white-hot as Chief Kim pushed the power systems beyond their rated limits. Energy readings that should have been impossible for a ship of its size blazed through space like a shooting star. Evasive maneuvers. Vextar roared as the human ship weaved between his cruiser's energy beams with impossible agility. Captain Chen had studied the sensor logs of every Krek's engagement in the ship's database. She knew their tactics, their weapons ranges, and their psychological profiles. The Dominion relied on intimidation and overwhelming firepower, but they had grown complacent after decades of easy victories against defenseless worlds. "Fire torpedoes," Sarah commanded. The Pioneer launched a spread of modified photon torpedoes, each one programmed with targeting data compiled during their approach. But these weren't standard ship-to-ship weapons. Chief Kim had spent the journey to Serenity 3 modifying them with some very human innovations. The first torpedo struck a Krek's cruiser's forward shields and exploded in a brilliant flash of light. For a moment, Vextar thought his ship's defenses had stopped the attack. Then the electromagnetic pulse hit. Every electronic system on the cruiser flickered and died. Shields collapsed, weapons powered down, and artificial gravity failed. The massive warship tumbled helplessly through space, its crew struggling to restore basic life support. "What manner of weapon was that?" Grixter demanded. Before Vextar could answer, 5 more EMP torpedoes found their targets. Half of his attack force was suddenly drifting in space, their crews working frantically to restart critical systems. But the Pioneer wasn't finished. As it completed its attack run, the ship's cargo bay doors opened and began launching dozens of small objects into space. They looked like simple metal spheres, barely larger than a human fist. "Mines," Vextar snarled. "These primitives think they can stop us with mines." The spheres activated simultaneously, each one deploying a web of nearly invisible monofilament wire. The Krek's ships, moving at high speed to intercept the human vessel, flew directly into the trap. The molecular thin wires sliced through there, holes like a knife through paper, venting atmosphere and severing power conduits. Commander Morrison had suggested the wire mines after studying footage of Krek ship movements. "They're used to enemies who fight them head-on," he had explained during the planning session. "They won't expect something this sneaky." 2 more. Krek's cruisers were crippled by the wire trap, their crews evacuating damaged sections and sealing emergency bulkheads. In less than 10 minutes, the human exploration vessel had disabled 7 enemy ships without taking a single hit in return. Stared at his tactical display in disbelief. These weren't the weapons or tactics of any known species. The humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. using technology and strategies that seemed designed specifically to counter Krek's advantages. All remaining ships, focus fire on the human vessel, he commanded. I want it destroyed immediately. The surviving Krek's cruisers opened fire with everything they had. Antimatter beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles filled the space around the Pioneer with deadly energy. But the human ship danced between the attacks like a leaf in a storm, its pilot seeming to anticipate every shot before it was fired. Lieutenant Commander Torres, the ship's helm officer, had grown up racing shuttles through the asteroid fields of the Sol system. The reflexes and spatial awareness that made her a champion pilot now kept them alive as she threaded the ship through a maze of enemy fire. Return fire, all weapons, Sarah ordered. The Pioneer's modified phaser arrays lanced out at the Krek ships. But these weren't the standard particle beams most species used in space combat. Dr. Harper had studied Krek's physiology extensively during the journey, and she had made some interesting discoveries about their sensory organs. The phasers were tuned to frequencies that would cause excruciating pain to Krek's nervous systems, even crew members protected by their ships. Hulls would be affected by the electromagnetic radiation bleeding through their vessel's shields. Screams of agony echoed through the Krek's fleet's communication channels as the modified weapons found their targets. Crews that had terrorized dozens of worlds suddenly found themselves writhing in pain, unable to focus on their duties. What are they doing to us? Grixter gasped, clutching his head as waves of neurological interference washed over him. Vextar fought through the pain, his warrior's training allowing him to maintain some focus. It doesn't matter. We still outnumber them. All ships, ramming speed. If we can't destroy them with weapons, we'll crush them with our hulls. The remaining Krek's vessels charged toward the Pioneer like wounded beasts, their massive forms accelerating to collision velocity. For a moment, it seemed like the human ship would be overwhelmed by sheer mass and momentum. Then Captain Chen played her final card. Chief Kim, activate the gravitational distortion field. The Pioneer had been equipped with an experimental gravity manipulation system, originally designed for navigating dangerous spatial anomalies during exploration missions. But Chief Kim had made some modifications during their journey to Serenity. Space around the human ship suddenly twisted and warped. The charging Krek's vessels found their navigation systems going haywire as local gravity fields pulled them off course. Two cruisers collided with each other in a spectacular explosion of twisted metal and venting plasma. A third was caught in a gravity well that sent it spinning helplessly toward the system's star. Commander, Vextar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by a single enemy vessel using weapons and tactics he couldn't understand or counter. For the first time in his military career, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Sir Grixter called out, his voice shaking. 3 more of our ships have been disabled. We've lost over half the fleet. Vextar's mind raced as he tried to process what was happening. These humans weren't just defeating his forces. They were making it look easy. Every weapon they deployed seemed specifically designed to exploit Krek's weaknesses. Every tactic they used turned the Dominion's strengths against them. Commander, his communications officer, reported, I'm detecting multiple human ships dropping out of warp throughout the system. For a moment, Vextar felt relief. If the humans had brought reinforcements, it would explain how one ship had achieved such impossible victories. But as the sensor data updated, his relief turned to confusion. Sir, the new contacts aren't ships. They appear to be escape pods. Captain Chen smiled as she watched the tactical display. The reinforcements were actually a brilliant deception, created by her crew during the battle. They had programmed their escape pods to mimic the energy signatures of human warships, creating the illusion of a massive fleet arriving in the system. The psychological effect on the already demoralized Krek's forces was immediate and decisive. Ships that had been preparing to continue the fight suddenly broke formation and began retreating toward the edge of the system. "This isn't over," Human Vextar transmitted, his voice filled with rage and humiliation. "The Dominion will not forget this insult. We will return with a fleet that will turn your home world to ash." "You're welcome to try," Sarah replied calmly, "but I should warn you, Earth is a dangerous place. Everything there evolved to kill everything else. You might not like what you find." The surviving Krex ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind their disabled vessels and the ruins of their invasion force. In less than 2 hours, a single human exploration ship had defeated one of the galaxy's most feared military fleets. But the victory came with a cost. The Pioneer had suffered significant damage during the battle, and several crew members had been injured by feedback from the ship's overtaxed systems. More importantly, they now faced the monumental task of helping the Zilani people rebuild their devastated world. Dr. Liana Voss emerged from the underground shelter where she had spent the past 3 days, blinking in the sunlight as she saw the Krex ships fleeing toward space. Around her, thousands of other Zilani survivors were climbing out of hiding places, their faces filled with amazement and gratitude. The human rescue shuttles began landing near the shelter entrances, their crews immediately setting up medical stations and distributing emergency supplies. Dr. Harper was among the first to make contact with the survivors, her universal translator allowing basic communication. "Who are you?" Liana asked, her voice filled with wonder. "How did you defeat the Krex with just one ship?" Sarah Chen, having transported down to the planet's surface, stepped forward with a smile. "We're humans from a world called Earth. We heard your distress call and came as quickly as we could. But the Krex Dominion has conquered dozens of worlds. Their military is supposed to be unstoppable." "They probably are, against conventional opposition," Sarah replied. "But humans didn't evolve on a conventional world. We come from a place where everything is trying to kill you from the moment you're born. It teaches you to be creative, adaptable, and very, very stubborn." Over the following days, the crew of the Pioneer worked alongside Zilani survivors to begin the process of planetary reconstruction. Human engineering teams helped repair critical infrastructure, while medical personnel treated the wounded. Cultural specialists like Dr. Harper facilitated communication and began establishing formal diplomatic relations. The Zilani people were amazed by their rescuers' determination and ingenuity. These humans seemed to approach every problem with the same creative ruthlessness they had shown in battle. When conventional solutions didn't work, they invented new ones. When obstacles seemed insurmountable, they found ways around, over, or through them. "Your species is remarkable," Dr. Voss told Captain Chen as they stood in the ruins of New Harmony's central plaza. "You traveled across the galaxy to help people you had never met, risking your lives for strangers." Sarah looked at the damaged city around them, already seeing signs of recovery as human and Zilani work crews labored together to rebuild. "Where we come from, we have a saying: the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We heard your call for help, and we couldn't just do nothing." 3 weeks later, the UES Pioneer departed Serenity 3, leaving behind a small team of specialists to continue assisting with reconstruction efforts. The Zilani had formally requested to join the United Earth Federation, offering their scientific knowledge and artistic achievements in exchange for protection and partnership. But the real victory wasn't military or political. It was the message that had spread throughout the galaxy in the wake of the Battle of Serenity III. For the first time in decades, someone had stood up to the Krex dominion and won. Other species began to hope that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to live in fear anymore. The humans had answered a desperate call for help from across the stars, and in doing so, they had announced their presence to the galaxy in a way no one would ever forget. They were the Deathworlders, the ones who had learned to survive in hell itself. And they had come not as conquerors, but as protectors. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.